The fluorescent lights on the fourth floor had been flickering for 6 months. 6 months that Elena Vance had noted in the maintenance request log. Initialing each entry with the same quiet diligence she brought to everything at sterling black. Nobody read the maintenance log. Nobody read anything Elena produced. Actually, they simply expected the files to appear where they were needed, the coffee to materialize in the correct mug, the schedule to organize itself around meetings she wasn't invited to attend. She existed in the architectural blind spot of the city's most prestigious corporate law firm, visible enough to be useful, invisible enough to be forgotten. The paralegal who had worked there for 3 years without a single partner learning how to pronounce her surname correctly. Vance. 1 syllable. It wasn't difficult. They called her Evans or Van Swatcherface, or simply paralegal when they needed anything at all, which was constantly and never with acknowledgement. 3 years of draft motions she researched but didn't write, of client meetings she summarized but didn't attend, of billable hours attributed to associates who had asked her the questions and then submitted the answers as their own work. She kept copies of everything, not because she planned anything, because her mother had taught her that paperwork was the only language power understood, and Elena had grown up fluent in a household where every document meant survival. Every signature was either protection or threat, and the difference between a save home and an eviction notice was often a single paragraph buried on page 47 that someone else hoped you wouldn't read. If you've ever been the person in the room who does the work but gets none of the credit, subscribe now. We tell stories about people like you and how they win. The building itself was Elena's favorite irony that nobody else knew. Sterling Black leased their prestige headquarters from the Vance Family Trust at a rate that would have made a commercial real estate broker weep into their spreadsheet. 15,000 square feet of marble and mahogany and brass nameplates at premium market rates, paid promptly on the first of every month to an entity that routed directly into an account Elena accessed through a bank in her mother's name, managed by trustees her mother had appointed before the cancer finished what the neglect started. Eleanor Vance had been many things a contract lawyer herself before the illness, a single mother who worked 80-hour weeks and still made every soccer game, a woman who collected properties the way broken people sometimes collected cats, filling empty spaces with things that generated income because she had grown up with none and refused to let her daughter experience that same hunger. When she died, the properties went into trust. The trust named Elena as sole executor. Elena was 24 years old, drowning in hospital bills and funeral costs, staring at a portfolio she couldn't comprehend, while partners at a firm she had soon joined accidentally through a temp agency placement sat in a building her mother owned and dismissed her existence with the casual cruelty of people who never had to think about where their offices came from. She hadn't told anyone. In the beginning, it felt like cheating somehow, like she hadn't earned whatever respect owning the building might generate, and she wanted, stupidly, to be valued for herself, for her work, for the late nights and the meticulous research and the ability to find the clause that saved a case when everyone else had given up. So she kept the documents in a safety deposit box and showed up to interviews in suits she bought at outlet stores and let Richard Sterling III call her Evans for 3 years because she was waiting for the moment when doing her job well would be enough. It never came. What came instead was a Tuesday in October when Victoria Ashworth decided that Elena Vance had become too convenient a target to ignore. Team Victoria or Team Elena? Declare your allegiance in the comments. I want to see who spots the sabotage first. Victoria had arrived 18 months after Elena, transferred from a sister firm in Chicago with a resume that cost more than Elena's car and a smile that never reached her eyes. She wanted Marcus Thorne's office. She wanted Richard's ear. She wanted the partnership track that Elena had never been offered and apparently wasn't going to be. And she wanted, specifically and with increasing obsession, Elena gone because Marcus had looked at Elena once during a deposition summary with something in his expression that Victoria recognized as interest, and Victoria Ashworth did not share. The things she did were small at first. Files reassigned without notification. Meeting times changed and Elena not informed. The good cases vanishing from her desk overnight and replaced with document review assignments that associates had declined. Elena documented each incident, quietly, thoroughly, in a notebook she kept in her bag that nobody knew existed. because Jonathan Reeves from IT had shown her how the server logs could prove manipulation if anyone ever bothered to check. And Jonathan Reeves had been watching Victoria move files since month 3 of her arrival, because IT guys noticed things that lawyers stepped over on their way to billable hours. The audit memo arrived on a Thursday. External compliance review. Routine, nothing to worry about unless you had something to hide. Victoria had something to hide. Specifically, a pattern of altered filings that traced back to her login credentials, but that she had carefully structured to appear as though they originated from Elena's terminal. 3 years of impeccable work, and Victoria had spent 6 months building a forgery that would crater Elena's career in a single afternoon. The boardroom summons came via email at 9:17 a.m. Elena was instructed to bring all files related to the Harrington merger. She was instructed to come alone. She was instructed, though nobody wrote this part down, to arrive as the sacrificial lamb that Victoria had been preparing since January. Have you ever watched someone set you up and been unable to prove it? Tell me your story in the comments. The community needs to know they're not alone in this. The elevator ride to 42 floors up took 43 seconds. Elena counted everyone. Manila folded her press her chest like a breastplate, watching the floor numbers climb and wondering if the tightness in her stomach was prescience or just the yogurt she had eaten for breakfast because she couldn't afford lunch this week. The doors opened onto carpet that cost more per square yard than her monthly rent. The receptionist didn't look up. The glass doors of the Aquitaine conference room were already closed, voices audible behind them, and when Elena knocked twice the way she had been taught, the conversation stopped. Then Richard's voice entered. She shouldn't have been surprised by how many people were in the room. Richard at the head of the table. Victoria seated to his right with a stack of documents already organized. Marcus across from her staring at the tabletop with the fixed attention of someone desperately avoiding eye contact, and 4 other associates lined along the sides like a jury that had already delivered its verdict. The only empty chair was at the far end of the table, the visitor's seat, the position for people being addressed rather than participating. Elena walked to it. She didn't sit. Standing felt like the only control she had left. Richard began without preamble. Ms. Evans. She didn't correct him. We've identified some irregularities in the Harrington merger files. Significant irregularities. Tracing back to your workstation, your login credentials, your documented involvement. He said documented like it meant true. Victoria slid a sheet of paper across the table. Numbers that Elena didn't recognize. Timestamps that place her terminal at the center of alterations she had never made. Do you have any explanation for this? Or should we proceed directly to the termination discussion? If you're feeling your blood pressure rise watching this scene, hit the like button. That anger is fuel, and we're going to need it for what comes next. Elena reached for the paper. Her hands were steady. 3 years of composing herself through worse moments than this Richard's public corrections. Victoria's whispered comments in the ladies' room. The Christmas party where she wasn't invited but was expected to handle the gift coordination anyway had taught her body how to betray nothing while her mind raced through possibilities. The timestamps placed her at her desk at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. She had been at her desk at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. She had been there finishing the Carmichael brief that Marcus had taken credit for in the partner meeting. But the file accessed during those timestamps wasn't Carmichael. It was Harrington. And she had never opened Harrington on that terminal, because Harrington wasn't assigned to her until April. This is in my login history. Her voice came out quieter than she intended. These timestamps are fabricated. Victoria made a sound that might have been a laugh. Fabricated. Right. Because someone hacked your station specifically to alter merger documents and then covered their tracks perfectly except for the part where they left your credentials all over it. That's your defense? I'm saying I can prove I was working on a different matter entirely during these windows. The Carmichael brief. Check the submission records. It was filed at 3 a.m. that night. I was the one who... Marcus' head came up. His eyes found hers across the table, and in them she saw something that looked horribly like guilt. He knew about Carmichael. He knew she had written it. Head handed it in as his own work and collected the compliment from Richard about his exceptional diligence. And he was sitting there watching her drown and not saying a word, because admitting she wrote it meant admitting had stolen it. And Marcus Thorne's entire identity was built on being the associate who deserved his track to partnership. The Carmichael brief is irrelevant. Richard cut in. and his voice had sharpened with the particular impatience of a man who wanted this over before it became complicated. What's relevant is that we have evidence of misconduct. We have a pattern of errors that this firm can no longer absorb. And we have a simple solution that allows everyone to move forward with dignity. He pushed a clipboard toward her. Exit papers. Voluntary resignation effective immediately. Severance waived. Non-disclosure signed. Reference provided that would be technically accurate and practically useless. Sign this, and well frame this as a mutual decision. Refuse, and we terminate for cause, which means no severance, no reference, and a note in your personnel file that follows you to every future employer in this city. What would you do in this moment? Sign and survive, or fight with nothing but your word against fabricated evidence. Drop your choice in the comments, 1 for sign, 2 for fight. The room waited. Victoria's pen was already out, poised as if she were the one signing. The associates along the table wouldn't meet Alina's eyes. Marcus was studying the wood grain, like it contained the secrets of the universe. And Richard Sterling III leaned back in his chair, her chair. Technically, in her building, at her mother's table, and crossed his arms with the satisfied expression of a man who had never once faced a consequence he couldn't buy his way out of. Elena reached for the pen. She picked it up, held it, looked at the exit papers with their neat lines and their careful language, and their complete erasure of 3 years of work that had generated millions in billable hours for people who couldn't bother to learn her name. Her hand trembled, just slightly, just enough that Victoria noticed and smiled. And then Elena set the pen down. I'm not signing this. The silence that followed was different from the silence before. This one had teeth. Richard's expression curdled from satisfied anticipation to cold annoyance. I'm sorry? You heard me. I'm not signing a voluntary resignation for something I didn't do. If you want to terminate me for cause, do it. Put it in writing. Explain to whatever labor board reviews this appeal why your evidence consists of fabricated timestamps that don't align with my actual work product, why you're conducting this hearing without HR representation, why Victoria Ashworth, who has had access to my login credentials since the server migration she managed, is sitting there looking like Christmas came early. Her voice had risen, steadied, found footing she hadn't known she possessed. I'm not signing anything. And when this is over, I'm going to make sure everyone understands exactly what happened in this room today. Richard stood, slowly, the way men stand when they've been challenged in their own kingdoms and are deciding how much damage control will be required. Ms. Evans, whatever your name is, you seem to be operating under a misunderstanding. You don't have leverage here. You have nothing. You have a career in this industry that is about to end, and you have a choice between ending it cleanly or ending it in a way that ensures you never work in corporate law again. So I'm going to ask you one more time. He picked up the clipboard, held it out, and when Elena didn't take it, he snapped. The clipboard connected with her shoulder. The paper scattered across the mahogany surface, sliding, falling. 3 years of composure crumbling in an instant as Victoria actually laughed. A sharp bark, a sound that echoed off the windows overlooking the city Elena owned, and Richard's voice rose to a shout about ungrateful employees and wasted investment, and how some people simply didn't understand their place. That moment right there, the clipboard, the laughter, the shouting, if that doesn't justify everything that happens next, nothing does. Share this video if you believe in payback with interest. Elena didn't remember leaving the room. She remembered fragments, the associates finally looking uncomfortable, Marcus still not meeting her eyes, Victoria's smile widening, Richard's flushed face twisted with the ecstasy of cruelty exercised without cost. She remembered gathering her things from the floor, or trying to, because Victoria's heel caught one of the pages and sent it skidding farther away, and someone muttered uselessly about getting security, and Elena straightened up from her crouch with something new settling into the architecture of her face. Something that had been sleeping for 3 years, fed on disrespect and dismissal, and the daily erosion of being treated as furniture by people who would cease to exist in her world within the week. She took the service stairs down, carried her box they'd packed her desk while she was in the meeting. Efficient little vultures through the back corridors of a building her mother's trustees listed as Asset 7 of the Vance portfolio. Past the janitorial closets and the electrical rooms and the maintenance access panels, she had reported in the log that nobody read. out through a delivery entrance that opened onto an alley where the dumpsters smelled like coffee grounds and broken dreams. And she sat down on the concrete, her back against the cold brick wall of a building she owned, and for exactly 60 seconds, Elena Vance allowed herself to fall apart. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, typed 4 words to a number she had never had reason to use before. It's time. You know something big is coming. The question is, are you ready for it? Subscribe now and join the 20 who actually see the twist before it lands. Jonathan Reeves found her at the coffee shop on Fremont Street 2 hours later. He looked like he was attending his own execution nervous, sweating slightly, adjusting his glasses every 4 seconds as he approached her table with a laptop bag clutched to his chest like a shield. Elena had ordered coffee she wasn't drinking, had been staring at the same spot on the table for 40 minutes, processing, planning, the rage settling into something colder and more useful as each minute passed. I have everything. Jonathan didn't sit down immediately. He stood there, laptop bag trembling slightly in his grip. Everything. 3 years. I started documenting after the first time they blamed you for something Victoria did the Carlson filing, remember? You got written up and it was her login, her timestamp, her mistake, and they put it in your file anyway. And I thought someone should know, should have proof, in case he stopped, swallowed, in case you ever needed it. He set the laptop on the table, opened it, turned the screen toward her. File directories, hundreds of them. Email forwards with full headers preserved. Server access logs showing Victoria's terminal activity mapped against the fabricated timestamps in Alina's record. Recorded audio files Jonathan had enabled a monitoring protocol after the second incident. And the files contained Victoria discussing the setup with a junior associate who apparently didn't realize IT could hear everything. Transcripts of Richard's verbal directives, reconstructed from voicemail backups and witness accounts. The complete architecture of an 18-month campaign to destroy Elena's career, documented in immutable digital ink by the one person in the building that everyone forgot existed. Jonathan is a hero we all need, but rarely get the person who sees everything and says nothing until the moment it matters. If you ever had a Jonathan in your corner, comment their initials below. We're celebrating the quiet ones today. Elena's hands were shaking when she reached for the keyboard, not from weakness, from the magnitude of what she was looking at, the scope of it, the completeness. Jonathan hadn't just given her ammunition, had given her a weapon of mass destruction, and every round was labeled with the name of someone who had earned every bit of what was coming. How? Her voice cracked. How did you? Why would you? Because they did it to Sarah before you. Jonathan finally sat down, adjusted his glasses, didn't meet her eyes. 2 years ago, nice girl, worked in accounting. They pulled the same thing, fabricated something, fired her for cause she couldn't get another job in the industry. Last I heard, she moved back to Ohio to live with her parents. And nobody said anything. Nobody did anything. And I thought he adjusted his glasses again. I thought maybe next time someone should have proof. And then you showed up, and you were good at your job, and you didn't deserve it. And I just started saving everything. Elena closed her eyes, opened them, looked at Jonathan Reeves, a man who had sat 3 cubicles away for 3 years and watched her be dismantled piece by piece, who had never said a word, who had simply collected the truth like artifacts for a museum he hoped would someday open. She reached across the table, squeezed his hand once. Didn't say thank you because thank you wasn't big enough, and Jonathan seemed to understand because he nodded and looked away and his ears turned red. Is there more? He slid a USB drive across the table. Black, unmarked, backup, in case they try to scrub the servers. Everything's duplicated here. And there's one more thing. He paused. The building. I ran the property records after the meeting today, because I heard Richard mention something about the lease renewal coming up, and I was curious. The Vance Family Trust. The executor is, he stopped. Looked at her. Really looked. For maybe the first time in 3 years. It's you, isn't it? You own the building. Elena didn't answer. She didn't need to. This is the moment the whole movie turns. If you guess Elena was connected to the building, comment called IT below. If you're shocked, comment what I want to see the numbers. The transformation took 4 hours. For hours of returning to an apartment she could finally stop pretending was all she could afford, of opening a closet she had stocked with clothes she had never worn to work because they were too nice, too expensive, too obviously not the wardrobe of someone who should be invisible. The charcoal pantsuit that had cost 2 months of paralegal salary, purchased in a moment of weakness during a bonus that Victoria had subsequently ensured disappeared from her paycheck. The champagne silk blouse she had bought at a sample sale and never found occasion to wear. Shoes that clicked instead of scuffed. Jewelry that her mother had left her. The silver chain she had hidden under discount store blouses for 3 years because she didn't want anyone to ask where she had gotten something so fine. She stood before the full-length mirror cracked down the middle, like everything else she owned, like the life she had been living, and looked at a stranger. The same face, the same hazel eyes that her mother had given her, the same chestnut hair, the same features that Richard Sterling had been unable to attach a correct name to across 36 months of shared occupancy in a building she held the deed to. But the posture was different. The set of the shoulders, the angle of the chin. The woman in the mirror wasn't crouching anymore, wasn't making herself smaller, wasn't apologizing for existing in spaces that had never welcomed her. She was preparing to walk into a room where she had been humiliated, surrounded by people who had celebrated her destruction, and she was going to destroy every single one of them with paperwork. Subscribe now if you want to see what happens when the invisible woman decides to be seen. The best plot twists are always the ones you should have seen coming. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Friday. Arthur Pennington's assistant had sent the notification at 9 a.m. mandatory attendance for all senior partners and designated representatives of the property ownership regarding urgent audit compliance matters. Richard had spent the morning furious about the intrusion, calling the building management company, which routed to a forwarding service that routed to a law firm in Delaware that routed to Arthur Pennington's personal line, demanding explanations, receiving none. By 1:45, the Aquitaine conference room was filled with the same faces from Tuesday, arranged in the same positions, radiating the same cocktail of annoyance and apprehension that came from being summoned by authority they couldn't identify or circumvent. Victoria had spent 3 days convinced the audit was about her. Richard had spent 3 days convinced it was a formality they could bluff through. Marcus had spent 3 days unable to think about anything except the look on Alina's face when she had realized he wasn't going to help her, and the fact that he still wasn't sure whether his silence had been self-preservation or cowardice, and the growing certainty that the distinction didn't matter. The door opened at precisely 2 p.m. Elena entered first. The silence that fell was absolute, not the quiet room holding its breath, the vacuum of a reality, restructuring itself around new data. She wore the charcoal suit, the champagne blouse, the shoes that announced themselves with every step across marble she had walked silently across for 3 years in scuffed pumps. Her hair was arranged in a sophisticated low twist that exposed her jawline, the line of her neck, the silver chain that caught the light like a declaration. Her makeup was minimal and precise, not hiding, not disguising, just clarifying, making sure they could see her face. All of it. Every expression she had been suppressing for 36 months. Victoria dropped her pen. It rolled across the table. Nobody moved to retrieve it. Richard started to speak the same dismissive tone had used on Tuesday, the same assumption of authority who let the... And then Arthur Pennington entered behind her, and his hand settled on Alina's shoulder with the casual weight of legitimacy, and he spoke in a voice that had been silencing rooms since before Richard Sterling's father passed the bar. Mr. Sterling, Ms. Vance is here representing the interests of the actual property owners. Do try to keep up. The look on Richard's face right now, if you could bottle that expression and sell it, you'd retire tomorrow. Like this video, if you're feeling even a fraction of the satisfaction in feeling describing it. Elena walked to the head of the table, Richard's chair. She didn't hesitate. Sat down, opened a leather folder she had brought new. Unlike the manila folder, they'd knocked the floor and arranged her papers with the same meticulous care she had brought to every task they'd assigned her and claimed credit for. Shall we begin? She didn't wait for an answer. The first document landed in the center of the table with a soft sound that seemed loud in compressed silence. The fabricated timestamp analysis Jonathan's work, cross-referenced with server logs that Victoria had believed herself competent enough to erase. The second document followed. Richard's verbal directive transcript, reconstructed from multiple sources, dated and time-stamped, his voice immortalized in text recommending Elena as the appropriate sacrifice for issues originating entirely from Victoria's mishandling. The third, the hidden client communications, the billing irregularities, the pattern of concealment that transformed termination for cause into obstruction of justice territory and elevated the entire matter from HR issue to potential criminal referral. Victoria's chair scraped back. She stood. Her face had lost its color and its composure simultaneously, the manufactured beauty cracking like porcelain under impact. This is you can't those logs are, authenticated by the server archive, which maintains immutable backups to exactly the standard of eventuality. Elena's voice was calm, pleasant, almost the voice of someone explaining something obvious to a slow child. Did you truly believe that IT oversight was suggestion, Victoria? Or did you simply calculate that no one would ever bother to check? She flipped to the next page in her folder. An understandable assumption, I suppose. No one checked before. No one advocated for Sarah Chun before she was driven out of the industry. No one questioned the pattern because the pattern served people who benefited from silence. She looked up, met Victoria's eyes. The silence is over. But it was the fourth document that ended everything. The property deed, the original instrument of conveyance, executed in 2003, transferring 15,000 square feet of prime commercial real estate at 475 Park Avenue South from the previous owner to the Vance Family Trust. The amendment naming Elena Vance as successor executor upon the death of Eleanor Vance, dated 2019. The current certificate of ownership, updated annually, bearing the stamp and seal of the New York City Register's office. And on the last page, above the notary block, the signature that owned the building they were sitting in. Eleanor Vance, mother of Elena Vance, executor Elena Vance, owner of the floor beneath Richard Sterling's feet, owner of the air conditioning that had been flickering for 6 months, owner of the marble and the mahogany and the brass nameplate, and the lease that Sterling Black had been paying prompt as clockwork, first of every month into an account that Elena accessed from her phone while sitting in apartments she pretended she could afford. She set the document down in the center of the table. Let it rest there. Watch their faces as the information propagated through brains that had been operating on fundamentally incorrect assumptions for 3 years. Richard's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The color that flooded his face during the humiliation seemed the flush of cruelty in joy drained now, replaced by something gray and shaky. His hands, resting on the table, had begun to tremble. Marcus was staring at Elena, not at the document, at her, at the transformation that had nothing to do with clothes or posture, and everything to do with the collapse of every assumption had ever made about who mattered and who didn't. She met his eyes, held them. Something passed between them, not forgiveness, not yet, but the recognition that forgiveness might eventually be possible if he earned it, and the understanding that earning it would require becoming someone completely different from the man who had sat silent while she was destroyed. Marcus messed up, big time, but is he redeemable, or is his silence unforgivable? Team forgiveness versus team goodbye vote in the comments. The war starts now. The silence lasted 90 seconds. It felt like years. It felt like the accumulation of every moment Elena had spent invisible in that building, compressed into a single span of time during which she was the most visible person in the room, and everyone else was learning what visibility actually meant. Then Elena closed her folder, stood, straightened her jacket with the same economical motion she had used to smooth down discount blouse fabric for 3 years, except now the fabric was Italian wool, and the motion was grace rather than apology. The audit will continue through the end of the month. I expect full cooperation from all current personnel. Mr. Pennington will be overseeing the process on behalf of the trust. She paused at the door, turned back, let her gaze sweep the room one final time. Richard collapsed into his own uncertainty. Victoria fled or fleeing. Marcus, caught between who had been and who he might become. The associates who had watched and said nothing, learning that watching and saying nothing was itself a choice with consequences. Oh, and Richard, the lease. It's up for renewal at the end of quarter. I'll have my people reach out to your people about the new terms. She didn't wait for a response. There wasn't one he could give. If that last line didn't hit like a freight train, check your pulse. Share this video with someone who loves watching arrogant people learn what rent increase really means. The rooftop was accessible through a stairwell that required a key card Elena had never possessed when she worked there. She possessed it now. The entire building responded to her access card, every door, every elevator, every secure area that she had walked past for 3 years with the resigned awareness of someone locked out of spaces she cleaned and organized and maintained without ever being permitted to occupy. The sun was setting over the city when she reached the terrace, gold and rose bleeding into purple. The windows of Manhattan, igniting one by one as interior lights came on against the encroaching dusk. Her building was visible from here, of course it was. She owned a view to a slender tower among towers, anonymous and grand and hers. She heard the door open behind her, didn't turn immediately, knew who it was from the cadence of the footsteps, the hesitation before they approached, the quality of silence that belonged to someone who wasn't sure of his welcome. "I look for you everywhere." Marcus' voice was rough, different from a measured confidence of the associate who had presented her work as his own, stripped of something, or perhaps stripped of something more honest. "I wanted to after the meeting on Tuesday. I should have. There isn't an excuse good enough. I know that. I just wanted you to know that I know it." Elena turned, studied him for a moment, the loosened tie, the shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, the hair that had clearly run his hands through repeatedly. He looked like someone who had spent 3 days understanding that the career had been building was constructed on foundations had never examined too closely, and that the examination was overdue. "Why are you here, Marcus?" "Because I don't know who I am anymore." He met her eyes, didn't flinch. "And I hope the person I want to be is someone you'd be willing to talk to, eventually, when you're ready. If you're ever ready." A pause. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned it. I'm asking for a chance to earn it." The wind moved through Elena's hair, loosened strand from the sophisticated twist she had spent an hour constructing. She didn't fix them. Let the imperfections stand. Let herself be someone who could be imperfect in public, who could be caught off guard by wind and circumstance and the unexpected sincerity of a man who had hurt her and showed up anyway to admit it. "You didn't know who I was," she said finally. "That's not an excuse. That's just context. The question isn't whether you should have spoken up on Tuesday. You should have. The question is, do you know who you are now? And is that someone I do want to know?" Marcus considered this. She could see him considering it, actually thinking, not performing thought the way he had performed competence and authority for the partners who had never bothered to look beneath the surface of either. When he answered, his voice was quieter, more uncertain, more real. "I'm working on it. I don't have a good answer yet, but I'm working on it." Elena held his gaze for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. Not a handshake, an offering, palm up, an invitation to contact, to connection, to the possibility of something that might grow from the ruins of what should have been. Marcus took it, his fingers wrapped around hers, warm and slightly trembling, and they stood together at the railing of a rooftop she owned, watching the city she controlled light up around them. And it wasn't forgiveness, and it wasn't closure, and it wasn't the neat resolution that stories like to promise. It was a beginning, a complicated, tentative, earned beginning between two people who had both failed, and both might be capable of being better. That moment on the rooftop, is it romantic, or is it too little too late? I have my opinion. Tell me yours in the comments. Best response gets pinned. Monday morning arrived with a particular clarity of autumn in New York's sharp sunlight. Cold edges, the sense that summer's indulgences had ended and the serious business of the year could finally commence. Elena arrived at 475 Park Avenue South at 8 a.m. through the main entrance for the first time in her tenure, as owner rather than occupant. The security guard at the desk, a man named Deshawn, who had held the door for her 1,000 times without ever learning her name, stood as she approached. Didn't quite know what to do with his body. Settled on a nod that acknowledged something had changed without specifying what. "Ms. Vance, welcome back." She took the private elevator to the 42nd floor, the one that required the key card she had never possessed, the one that opened directly into the corner suite Richard's suite, formerly with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its panoramic views, and its brutalist furniture that she would be replacing before the week ended. The office was empty, clean, waiting. Elena walked to the desk, massive, carved, The kind of furniture that announced success loudly enough to compensate for whatever insecurity lurked beneath. She set down one item, a framed photograph. Eleanor Vance, smiling in a garden, alive in a way that photographs preserve people who are gone. Her mother, who had bought this building on a contract lawyer's salary, and the stubborn belief that her daughter should never be at the mercy of anyone who didn't value her, who had died without knowing that Elena had taken a job in her own building and let them treat her like dirt because she had wanted to earn something instead of inherit it. I did it my way, Elena said to the photograph, to her mother, to the empty office in the city beyond the windows, and the 3 years of invisibility that had forged something harder and brighter than anything inheritance could have provided. But I think you'd be okay with how it ended. She sat down in the chair she had chosen, ergonomic, supportive, nothing like Richard's throne of intimidation, looked out at the view she had passed for 36 months without ever being permitted to enjoy. The city spread before her in morning light, skyscrapers catching sun like scattered coins, the Hudson glinting in the distance, the endless horizontal sprawl of ambition and commerce, and people climbing toward things they couldn't yet see. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Dinner tonight? My reservation. Your building. Marcus. Elena smiled, genuinely, warmly, the first unguarded expression she had allowed herself in longer than she could remember. Her thumbs moved across the screen. 8 p.m. Don't be late. She set the phone down, looked at the photograph, looked at the view, looked at the woman in the window's reflection, the same face, the same eyes, the same person who had walked into this building 3 years ago in an outlet suit and scuffed shoes and let them call her Evans because fighting seemed harder than surviving. Surviving was harder. Fighting was liberation, and she was free. If you made it this far, if you stayed for the payoff, felt the humiliation, cheer the reversal, and hope for the romance, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for. Subscribe now. Join the community that refuses to be invisible. And I'll see you in the next story about someone else who was underestimated, who endured, and who won. Until then, may everyone who ever underestimated you live to regret it.